And also, what's really fascinating to me is not only do we do it because we can think in US terms, but we do it at a global scale. We've got a global clearing price for art. So you can be a young up-and-coming artist in Niger. It's game-changing because you sell on a global basis at a global price, which you don't have an ability to do right now. Scale. Right. They just don't scale generally unless you're Damien Hirst and you have a marketing engine. But and I was going to come on to this later, but I think it's at point is how the discoverability is still a problem, right? I go into OpenSea, overwhelmed. And then I go into Nifty Gateway, it's even worse. And then I go into Rarible. It just becomes overwhelming.
Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Finance. With his audacious forecasts and groundbreaking technological insights, Raoul Pal leads us into the distant future of cryptocurrency. Right now, one of the most important concerns is, who exactly will possess Ethereum in the year 2025? Your response can take you by surprise. Early on, the majority of Ethereum was held by pioneers who had participated in the initial coin, offering ICO in 2014. However, by the middle of the year 2025, the reality is rather different. The largest holder is not even a single person. Rather, it is Ethereum's Beacon deposit contract, which anchors proof of stake and contains roughly 66 million ETH, which is more than half of the supply.
Is what we've essentially also got, amongst other things, is an open email address book.
Yes.
So if you think of what we talked about was, the kind of how do you contact your customers? Right now, most of us do it via email, or if not, you might do it via pop-ups on a mobile site. But what we've done is made every single email database public in NFT world, in the future world, which creates a bit of a problem of the excessive amounts of information that get thrown at you via your wallet. Because anybody can drop anything to any like-minded person. And this is going to be a marketer's dream for a period of time. And it's going to be a nightmare for the rest of us. I don't know. Have you thought about any of that?
I think it is simply email before effective anti-spam. I think it is going to be first a marketer's dream, then I'm at the leading edge of this because the amount of scammy airdrops that get pushed to my wallet so that people think that I'm minting, the slithering snake collection is extraordinary. Right? Like the activity feed, it's every couple of minutes all day long, right? Someone's throwing an NFT. This thing is a temporary problem because in the exact same way as we were able to build and effectively solve spam, this is just a form of spam. And eventually systems will be built. And because they can be built in public, will iterate pretty quickly to be like, this is a scammy collection. I'm just going to hide it from you in your interface. Like the token will be in your wallet, but you're just never going to see it, right? And then people or collections that are serious or from trusted providers or that you've clicked in your address book that Azuki airdropped us something today. Certainly, that one I want to see, right? Some random thing, maybe I'd let someone spam score it, right? And it can be community-based, ultimately, spam scoring. And you can see all the metrics, right? If people use them and trade them and whatever, this is a pretty good collection. Let me surface it. Maybe you've actually gotten a nice NFT here.
Yeah, because, if you've got verified stuff, let's assume in that world, but let's assume, you're a Punks holder and Aku airdrop something, you need a verification that you haven't verified, but whether it's a large group, because it's distributed, we can pretty much solve that quite quickly by allowing the community to decide what is a verifiable thing and what isn't. And then
correct.
Maybe that works.
Yeah, I think it's an immaturity of the tools, and it's fine because all this behavior is emergent. No one thought that this was not an issue for anyone a year and a half, right?
No.
And so now then people figured it out. And so I'm not so worried about that. You say it's like an open email address book, but email is fairly open, right? That's why you see that's why you get spam.
Yeah.
But then we've solved it with filters. So 2 more big picture thesis. One that is not like conceptually important, but it is, I think, important when we talk about NFTs more specifically. I'm pretty sure NFTs are going to flip in fine art distribution. And one of the stories I told on Twitter, so I lived in Soho in Manhattan for 20 years. And it was always like an early in my life dream to own an Andy Warhol tomato soup can. And so when I was 22 in Manhattan and certainly did not have the money to pay that much for a print, I'd go to the museum and I'd take dates to the museum and we'd go look at it. Like, oh, someday one of these will be mine, right? And then, I get older and then so at some point I'm like, I think I have enough money to be able to do this. And I lived a block away from some of the top Warhol dealers on the planet. The process is hilariously bad, right? You go to them and say, hey, do you have an Andy Warhol tomato soup can? No. Okay. Do you know when you'll have one? Also no. Will you call me when you have one?
Maybe.
And they say yes, but the guy there at the front desk is writing your name on a Post-it. And I'm like, oh God, he's never going to call me. That Post-it's going to be in the trash by tonight, all right? And so this goes on for years. I'd pop in every couple months. No, do you want a black bean soup? We have a black bean soup. I'm like, I don't want a black bean soup. I want a tomato soup. It's like a life dream that I have one of these things. So this goes on for 5 years, right? And I think during that period, there might have been one or two that I just missed. Of course, they forgot to call me, or they called some guy they wanted to sell it to more. I don't know. Until finally I see one in the window. And I said, oh, okay, I want to buy this one. And then, how much is it? Like, I don't know, $140,000. Okay. Why is it this price? Because basically, because we say so. Okay. Fine. Here's me like fairly, naive art. How do I know it's an Andy Warhol? Oh, here's his signature. I'm in crypto for years at this point. That doesn't mean anything. That's security theater. How do I know that's his signature? Well, we are going to give you this certificate that says we say it's a signature. I'm like, you're printing it out right in front of me. It doesn't mean anything either. This was signed in the 1960s. You're printing out the certificate right in front of me today.
Yeah. And witnessed by whom? Yeah.
Witnessed by me, who also... And how do you know it's a signature? Well, we bought it from this guy in Europe, and he had it in his closet for a very long time. As you can see, it's really good quality. A whole bunch of things that were interesting, but not actually why we know that it's Andy Warhol's signature. But, this is how it is. That's how I bought it. And I'm pretty sure I have a certain one of those tomato soup cans, as sure as anyone else who buys from the gallery. But I wouldn't say, I'd bet my life on it, right? And so, okay, an interesting process. And then I compare it to when I got second time around at the punks, when I said, oh, I'm going to buy a punk. And then another punk, and another punk, and you can't stop. But there, did I have to go to West Broadway in Soho? No. I was, in fact, several thousand miles away from there. In fact, I was locked down in COVID. In fact, I couldn't leave my sofa. But all that I need, an internet connection and MetaMask. And how do I know it was the right price? Well, I had the global order book since inception in front of me, right? Every sale, every bid, every ask, every transfer. I can bid anyone I want, even if it's not for sale. I can see who has them. You have full transparency.
Following closely after are exchanges such as Coinbase, Binance, and Bitfinex, each of which manages millions of US dollars worth of Ethereum in order to power liquidity, bridges, and staking products. Institutions have also taken a decisive action in this regard. In addition to the fact that Fidelity, Grayscale, and Bitwise are working to establish Ethereum as a mainstream treasury asset. BlackRock's iShares Ethereum Trust currently has more than 3 million ETH as long-term stakes. Even firms like Bitmine Immersion and SharpLink Gaming currently hold hundreds of thousands of ETH in their possession. Individuals continue to be significant. Vitalik Buterin is reported to have close to $1 billion. Joseph Lubin controls almost 500,000, while early whales such as Rainless and the Winklevoss twins continue to be legendary names. However, by the year 2025, the ownership story of Ethereum will no longer be solely about whales. The Ethereum network has evolved into a network that is supported by contracts, organizations, and institutions who view ETH as both an investment and an infrastructure element.
And you're like, oh, I see. This is art distribution's internet moment. It's going from being a pre-internet business to a post-internet business. And someone in the art will say, no, but we have websites where we sell art. That's different, right? This is now natively internet, right? The whole thing is, it's not you have an order management system and then a different unit ships this out to you, right? I've done that too. I've shipped art across continents. It takes months. It's painful. It costs a surprising amount of money, right? And, eBay did not turn out to be some type of subset of Pennsylvania antique shops. It turned out to be a gigantic superset of Pennsylvania antique shops. It was like the global marketplace for non-standard goods or something, right? And that's what's going to happen here. It's not that I am not saying fine art galleries are going to go away. I mean, there's antique shops in Pennsylvania today. There's radio stations today, right? But the market opportunity for selling art and then a bunch of other things, which we'll talk about in a second, online is vastly larger than selling it through a subscale retail shop that on average on a Tuesday afternoon at 11 o'clock has 0 people in it. 0. None. That is actually typically what it looks like, right? And so, it's better for artists. Damien Hirst did this drop last year. Damien Hirst, of course, is a very famous artist. Damien Hirst can sell his art whenever he wants. But he sold 10,000 pieces in like 5 minutes. And even if he had like 5 galleries working for him at the same time, they couldn't sell at that volume, at that pace in the real world, even if you're Damien Hirst.
I own one of those as well.
Yeah, so do I. And it's like, if you had to go to, I don't know, London or Geneva or Miami or New York to buy one, would you have gotten out of bed to buy one? I don't think I would have.
No, and look, I've tried to buy Damien Hirst in the past because that was a cultural reference for me. It was a fucking nightmare.
Right. And that's what I'm telling you.
It's just as simple as that. It's just a nightmare. You don't know the price. The gallery's ripping you off. Everybody's ripping you off. You don't really know what you're getting. And, I just didn't bother in the end. I bought signed rock and roll music photographs, Mick Rock stuff, because it was easier to get validated because I could buy it from Mick Rock himself. But other than that, I gave up.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. This is how it is. But the other end of the spectrum is societally more interesting because Damien Hirst is going to be fine in both cases, right? But imagine you're like the top butterfly photographer of Knoxville, Tennessee. Realistically, in a physical retail system, you can't make a living. It has to be your hobby, right? You have to have some type of other job. How many people in Knoxville are going to buy photographs of butterflies in repeating quantities? Not enough. You're going to do your own website to try and sell them, try and get into one of big art. Difficult. Here, though, and I'm not saying it's easy, but you can, Chris Dixon style, find your 50 or 100 true fans that there are probably 100 people in the world who would buy 1 or 2 butterfly NFTs a year from your style. And you can turn your hobby into your actual profession. This is going to be an absolute boom for everyone who works in the creative professions, right? This is going to be, the idea of, the creative professions are not well paid is, I think, largely just because we don't have good technology to transport intangibles.
Yeah, they don't scale. Right? They just don't scale generally unless you're Damien Hirst and you have a marketing engine. But and I was going to come on to this later, but I think it's at point is how the discoverability is still a problem, right? I go into OpenSea, I'm overwhelmed. And then I go into Nifty Gateway, it's even worse. And then I go into Rarible, it just becomes overwhelming.
Huge problem.
We're missing that layer, I guess, the Amazon. I hate to use something like that, but the Amazon experience where it'll find you and you find it?
We will see vastly different cuts at this. Some of that will be that. Some of that will be much better. Some of them will be skeuomorphic, real life style visualizations. I throw that again in the bucket of time, money, economic incentives, and the fact that it's extremely valuable to do discoverability well is going to solve this problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Like,
I agree.
And so it doesn't mean automatically because you issue an NFT you're going to make money. It does not mean that at all. But you have access as a small artist to the same distribution rails as Damien Hirst has on a first-class basis.
And also, what's really fascinating to me is not only do we do it because we can think in US terms, but we do it at a global scale. We've got a global clearing price for art. So you can be a young up-and-coming artist in Niger. It's game-changing because you sell on a global basis at a global price, which you don't have an ability to do right now.
However, every trader has the similar dream. They want to be able to identify the next cryptocurrency pump before it becomes popular. The ChatGPT can serve as a significant research tool that provides traders with an advantage. Despite the fact that nobody can see into the future, it is able to assess fundamentals, highlight strong teams, and identify triggers such as token burns or exchange listings by using prompts that have been meticulously developed. Additionally, it is able to summarize sentiment across other platforms such as X, Reddit, and YouTube, where rapid surges in mentions frequently indicate forthcoming transactions. When the insights provided by ChatGPT are combined with other tools such as CoinGecko, LunarCrush, or DX tools, the real strength lies in the fact that it allows for the comparison of hype with actual statistics. This manner, traders are not chasing noise. Rather, they are verifying signals with volume and mood as they operate. There are some pumps that are not worth chasing, and during these times, ChatGPT can be of great assistance. In order to prevent losses from piling up, it can identify potential red flags such as faceless teams, limited liquidity, or unscrupulous enterprises. Traders will be able to cut through distractions, refine methods, and have an easier time moving smarter in the fast-paced world of cryptocurrency if they use it wisely. However, it will not guarantee gains.